Lots of people are wondering, what's Gator Collective?
It's a team of talented athletes and passionate fans.
It's the playbook for our NIL success.
To earn compensation for our name, image, and likeness.
It's exclusive access to unforgettable moments.
This includes autographs, interviews, appearances, and more.
It's what connects Gator athletes like me.
And me.
And me.
With you.
So what are you waiting for?
Join Gator Collective today and experience Gator Nation like never before.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shout-outs, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today. Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Coming at you, another episode. Teased it earlier in the week. Gator Great wide receiver, SEC Network Analyst Chris Doering joins us right here on Gators Breakdown. Give his thoughts of the Gators with the 1-1 start on the season. Look back at the Utah win. Look back at the disappointing Kentucky loss. Chris was around the program a lot during the summer. Had some very nice praise for Billy Napier along the way. So we'll get his thoughts on kind of the program and where the Gators are at right now at this early portion of the season. We'll also get to hear from Billy Napier on the SEC teleconference. I got to ask him a couple of questions as far as the running backs go and that running back rotation. That's an ever popular topic right now. And also the deep ball and the explosive plays in the passing game. Asked Billy Napier about that too and trying to create some more right there. So he has some good things to say there on the SEC teleconference, does Billy Napier. And also we'll get some updates on some fall injuries right now that the Gators are dealing with after the Kentucky game. So, all right, here we go. The interview with Chris Doering. All right, here we are on Gators Breakdown with Gators Great wide receiver Chris Doering, SEC Network Analyst as well. Chris, taking time out of his busy schedule to join us here on Gators Breakdown. Chris, thank you once again for hopping on.
No, David, good to be back with you, man. I feel like we do this annually, so it's good to check in, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So we set this up last weekend. Florida had their first SEC game coming off the big win versus Utah. So 1-1 on the Gators right now, and probably better than some people thought. 1-1. A lot of people were pegging Florida 0-2 to start. No warm-up games, certainly to start the season for Billy Napier. He didn't get that chance to ease into the season.
It's a very dangerous schedule. I mean, I don't think Billy Napier could have asked for a more challenging first-year schedule if he had, even asked for it. So I you look at, to me, man, if you can go 2-2 in the month of September, I think that's a good outcome for the challenges that you face with a team like Utah coming to town. What we know about Kentucky, or what people know about them now that they're continuing to just find out, and what the challenge of going to Knoxville is going to be at the end of the month. So I felt like getting that win against Utah was equity in the bank. And, I think Florida's probably not as good as what they were against Utah at times, and also not as bad as what they were against Kentucky at times. So I think for me, it's kind of what I expected, given the overhaul of where this program needed to be taken to, and the process that it's going to take to get there.
All right. If you're watching the YouTube version, Chris, what's the dog? What's your dog's name?
Did you hear him?
No. We see.
Oh, he's here. Yeah. My dog's name is Butters, and obviously I'm gone quite a bit in the fall. So just got back from my weekend in Charlotte, and he's all over me here. So probably before we get done with this segment, he'll be sitting in my lap like a little lap dog.
Sounds good. So if you're listening to the podcast version, I don't hear it on my end. So, but if you hear some dog panting, that's where we're going with the story right there. So Chris Doering right here on Gators Breakdown. So Chris, what do you think we've learned from these Gators? I mean, we've learned a lot, but there's still so much to learn with this team. Yeah. Are these two games like what you expected to see? I mean, the inconsistency for sure. I warned, and you kind of alluded to it as well. Transitions never easy. Harley come in with an instant fix add two of the best teams on the schedule the first two games, I think there's a solid foundation to build off of. But yeah, there's a sense of inconsistency and just not knowing really where to go yet.
Yeah. I thought, David, in the preseason, 7-5 was probably where Florida would finish, given where the roster is right now. And obviously, Coach Napier taking over this program and trying to get everybody, headed in the right direction. If they can get to 8-4, given the schedule they face, I think that would be a really successful season. But I know that's looking too far in advance. Right now, it's about just the game-to-game progression and getting better. I think Florida right now, maybe the thing that I liked the most was the resiliency of the team against Utah, the ability to battle back when bad things happen. And I think that's going to be tested after the loss to Kentucky. How can they put that one in the rearview mirror? How can they get back to work? How can they get on the same page and continue to improve? I think what we've seen is a young starting quarterback that has loads of ability that still needs some time under his belt to refine his passing ability, to understand what the challenges are that teams are going to give him. Obviously, Kentucky was pretty set against having him beat him with his legs, so he's got to find a little complement to his running ability with his consistency throwing the football. And defensively, they're going to have to find a way to stiffen up in the second half. I think the big Achilles heel heading into the season for me was the defensive line. I don't think it's probably on the whole what you need to have in the SEC to win, both in terms of overall talent and depth of that talent. Clearly, that's been a point of emphasis with the recruiting class here that's being put together for 2023. A number at 4 or 5 defensive line commitments over the last month. So it's going to take some time, but that doesn't really help this season. So they're going to have to find a way to develop more of the talent that's on the roster right now at the defensive line position and figure out a way to deepen that rotation a little bit.
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned Anthony Richardson, of course, and look, he's not going to be Kyle Trask back there sitting in the pocket, and then that's definitely not his skill set to begin with, and he shouldn't be asked or expected to be that. So, but you got to see a good bit of practice before the season started, and we're on campus a lot around the team. The wow moments will always be there, like you said. Wait and see mode a bit, probably. And look, I think we got to take into account his only his third start, of course. And I think, we go back to a year ago and he got some experience, but how much of a lost season was that, I guess, come into question as well. Where should he be at in your mind?
Well, I mean, it's about what you expect, he just finished his third start as a quarterback at the college level, has a tremendous amount of athleticism, has probably been able to get by on his athleticism for most of his high school career. And so now he's got to learn how to become a more complete quarterback. People have said, oh man, he's going to be a top 10 draft pick. I thought it was a little bit hasty to say that about the 2023 draft, maybe in a couple drafts down the road, but he's not a consistent enough passer at this point in time. And that's okay. I don't know why people are putting this much pressure and expectation on the kid. And he is a kid. He's still just learning how to play the position, how to manage the pressure that comes along with being the quarterback at the University of Florida, how to manage the expectation of being a kid from Gainesville playing the quarterback position here in the city he grew up in. So, there's a lot on his shoulders, but when I go back and look at the tape, David, there's a lot of other guys that are busting as well. Running backs not picking up their assignments in protection, guys dropping passes, receivers and quarterbacks not being on the same page. Like, there's a lot that needs to be improved, and it's not just pointing the finger at Anthony Richardson himself. But at the end of the day, throwing the ball 38 times is not a recipe for success with Anthony Richardson at your quarterback.
Right, and Billy Napier's offense as well. Well, given what we know about his offense coming in to this season. So, Chris, of course, I know you keep an eye on that wide receiver position. And look, it'd be nice if Billy Napier had Chris Doering and Ike and Riedel out there being able to catch some passes, but he doesn't. And look, not really needed because this isn't the fun and gun out there. And as you mentioned, some of it's quarterback play, some of it's wide receivers, some of the offensive line not holding up for Anthony Richardson to set his feet and get a throw down there. But it does seem that lack of playmaking ability that we were worried about coming into the season, that's kind of bled over into the first 2 games as well.
Well, first and foremost, I've been pleasantly surprised with the offensive line. I think they've overall exceeded what my expectation levels were for the coming into the season. I thought the running back group has been tremendous as well. And obviously Etienne's going to be a future star, if not already getting to that status now. I like those 3 guys. to me, the receivers, that was one of the questions coming into the season. One of the reasons why you went to the transfer portal to get a guy like Ricky Pearsall, who has been a nice addition and a nice complement to what you had on the roster. I still believe in the guys that were already recruited by the previous staff. I look at a guy like Justin Shorter, all the ability in the world coming out of high school, has the size and athletic ability. Just need a little more consistency from him. Xavier Henderson seems like he's coming on strong now. I want to see my guy Trent Whittemore get a chance to do a little bit more too. So I think they'll continue to get better. It's just at this point, I don't know that this offense is going to be a throw the ball down the field kind of offense. I think for two reasons, David. They need to be a ball control offense. One, to stay ahead of the chains, be an offense that has Anthony Richardson in third and manageable situations where he could either run or pass the football or even go for it on fourth down a number of times like they did against Utah because it's an advantageous situation and not out of desperation. And two, they got to protect the defense. We talked about it earlier. The defensive line is going to be the Achilles heel this year. If you can keep them off the field and try to keep them rested a little bit more by possessing the football longer and minimizing, the minutes on the field for those guys, I think it'll help you in the end of the day.
Chris, a couple more thoughts with you right here. And this one might hit home a bit for you too because of who your head coach was and his approach to the game. And there's this thought out there, and even before Billy Napier was hired, that there's a reaction when he was hired. Now it's kind of coming out that he needed to hire an offensive coordinator instead of taking on play calling duties himself. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And ultimately, I don't think Napier's career is going to be decided whether he hires an offensive coordinator or not. But what do you feel there? Obviously, you play for one of the best coaches to ever do it. The one head coach and offensive coordinator calling plays. Look, Billy Napier's no Steve Spurrier when nobody's calling him that. But where do you stand in today's college football of a head coach being the play caller, and specifically this scenario?
As you've acknowledged, David, I'm biased, having played for a guy that was our head coach and also one of the best play callers that have ever been around in the history of college or pro football. I've often wondered this, though, like if you're a successful coordinator on offense or defense, so much to the fact that you get a job as a head coach because of those skills, why would you ever give that up? Particularly for a guy like Coach Napier, who loves being around the quarterbacks, is out there at practice every single day working closely with the quarterbacks. It reminds me so much of Coach Spurrier and his perspective and the way that he went about coaching on a day-to-day basis at practice. Like, I just never understood, if you enjoy doing it, if you do a good job at it, why would you give that up? I'm not putting the fate of my career in somebody else's hands when what I've done, either calling plays on offense or defense, has gotten me to the point that I'm at now.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's it's an easy target after what we saw Saturday night, but I can't jump on board with it. If that's what he wants to do, and if that's how he feels, that's where he's comfortable at, and leading a program that way, it may take him out of his comfort zone to try and be CEO guy, and that may make it even worse.
We're 2 games in. I mean, what are people talking about? The guy was a tremendous play caller at Louisiana. Like, the overreaction by our fan base is what has me the most frustrated at times. And people criticize me in the offseason for making the comment that our fan base was the worst. Obviously, I don't mean that our fan base is the worst. I think there's a vocal part of our fan base that has unrealistic expectations, that wanted to fire a guy because he wasn't recruiting up to their expectation and standards, of which that's been proven false now with the job that they're doing. I can't say enough about the job that Katie Turner does, the job that entire recruiting staff does in terms of creating relationships, the number of recruits that are in attendance, the number of recruits that were on campus on Sunday. Like, I just think people need to chill and have some patience and understand, again, this is a major overhaul and not some cosmetic fix that's going on.
Yeah, Chris, kind of going to that, one of the last thoughts, and we'll get into some more SEC storylines before I let you go. But as a former player, you were invited on campus a good bit. You were on campus, see in practice. You've been around the program. Your initial impressions, you kind of just hit on it, but the program direction under Billy Napier and kind of the process. I mean, I love it. For Dan Mullen, it was great offensive mind, but there were some questions about the process and what did the future look like with current recruiting, and what did the future look like in recruiting. Right now, even the process looks a little bit different, of where you can kind of peek ahead a little bit and see the process probably paying off down the road, at least in one aspect.
No question. I love it. I love the guy that I've gotten to know, having a chance to have him reach out and call me specifically when he early on in his tenure here was an honor. I'm going to do everything I can, obviously, to support my alma mater, and he's certainly gotten me to buy into supporting him personally. Not that was his goal, but I find him to be incredibly authentic, and authenticity is something that human beings are drawn to. So much so that you look at when he was named coach, there was not this mass exodus of kids putting their names in the transfer portal. There were people buying into what he and his staff were selling and understanding that this is possible. You look at the excitement of those players, what they've done for them in terms of the housing, what they've done. I know the facility was already under construction, but what they've done to further tweak it to give them every advantage they could possibly have. Like, I just think it'd be a lot of fun to play for the staff. And you saw the resiliency from them against Utah, as I mentioned earlier. That resiliency from me comes from being around somebody like Billy Napier, who has gotten them to believe in themselves, who has gotten them to believe in their teammates. And I think it's just a continuing process that you're going to see. It may not be a linear, upward trajectory. It may have times of peaks and some valleys too. But I believe in the undertaking that's in place and the people that are involved in doing it. I just can't say enough about all of the staff that he's put together that I've had a chance to be around.
Yeah, definitely different feeling behind the scenes, as we can kind of tell here by talking to you, talking to other former players, and just kind of what we get to see from an outsider's perspective as well. So, Chris, before we wrap up, man, of course, SEC Network Analyst as well. So you got an eye on the SEC each and every weekend there while you're in Charlotte at the SEC Network studios. So, as expected, Georgia, Alabama, top two. May even can slant that towards Georgia more now than Alabama from what we've seen the first couple of weeks of this season. You were very high on Kentucky. That's kind of playing out early part of this season. Texas A&M immediately needs to bounce back this week, losing to App State. Now Miami coming into town. Arkansas, 2 good wins so far. Brian Kelly off to a bad start with the opening loss to FSU. Chris, this season, we're 2 weeks in, and we're not lacking for storylines whatsoever.
It's fun, right? I mean, that's what we expected. This is a conference that's deep from top to bottom. Even Vanderbilt looks to be improved from where they were last year in Clark Lee's second season there in Nashville. I like the conference as a whole. Texas A&M, unfortunately, is overhyped every single year. It'd be nice for them to kind of be able to fly under the radar, but I think everybody with the offseason dust up between Jimbo and Coach Saban had eyes and expectations on A&M. I thought it was a little unrealistic given what they lost on defense and their defensive coordinator and what we had questions about at the receiver position and quarterback position. So, to me, they're probably an 8-win team as well when it's all said and done. I think the team we're not talking about enough is Mississippi State. I'm huge on Mike Leach's team. I love Will Rogers. There's a lot of experience in that offense over the last 2.5 years now that looks like it's paying dividends, and Zach Arnett's done a tremendous job on the defensive side. Unfortunately, with their late game against Memphis and even later game last week against Arizona, a lot of people aren't seeing what the Bulldogs are doing. But I think that can be a team that could be really impressive in terms of their projection or trajectory from last year to this year. And obviously, as you mentioned, I was high on Kentucky. I still believe in Kentucky. I think the pairing of having one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC, in my opinion, with what they'll have when Chris Rodriguez comes back, and that defense, I think their linebacking core may be one of the best, if not the best, in the SEC, which is saying a lot. And then Arkansas. Arkansas is a team that has exceeded my expectations. Maybe the best resume 2 weeks into the season with wins over Cincinnati and South Carolina. So a lot to talk about. I'm sure we'll have even more to talk about with some really important games coming up this week. Auburn and Penn State is one I got my eye on. Obviously, Texas A&M and Miami, as you mentioned. But it's getting down to where we're starting to see a little bit more conference-on-conference play too. And, that makes it even more interesting here in this league.
Yeah, I do like this change in college football a lot, where we're getting a lot more of these big programs playing early games. I mean, we're 2 weeks into the season. We already know a lot. We're going to learn even more in this first month of the season. But
it's like basketball, right? I mean, you make hay in your pre-conference schedule. The reputation of your conference is built in the first couple weeks of the season, and that's why it's so important to not lose to an App State. It's important to get some ranked wins against somebody like Miami this week. So, a lot to be determined still, but I'm with you. I love the matchups. I love the home and home aspect of it too. Getting to see Alabama go to Texas last week was amazing, and just continue to look forward to seeing more of those Power 5 matchups between the different conferences.
Chris, we got to get the one over LSU. I'm tired of you losing that bet to Peter.
I'm tired of looking like a fool having to pay these bets off to him, especially when we're 21-point favorites and double-digit favorite again last year. Like it doesn't seem possible, but yet here I am, the one dressing up like a goon every year.
Peter, a good friend of the show as well.
Yeah.
Enjoy Peter and Chris getting together. And man, with this, for our Gators' sake, I hope Florida gets a win over LSU. But for Chris's sake in particular, we've got to see what you have in store for Peter when Florida beats LSU. So
that's right.
All right, Chris, man, I can't thank you enough. SEC Network Analyst, former Gator Great wide receiver, joining us right here on Gators Breakdown. Good stuff from Chris Doering, always calling it like he sees it. Might have the orange and blue in his veins, but objective opinion you will get from Chris Doering. So, seems like he's pretty high on the future of the Gators right there, and we'll see. We'll see what happens the rest of this season. All right, some injury news and notes coming out of the Kentucky game ahead of USF. Ventrell Miller, Michael Tarquin will both be out versus the USF game. We'll see if there's any more, but Billy Napier did say they will not play versus USF. So we'll see what that means for the future as well. But, this opponent in a game you should control. You're not going to force those guys out there if they don't need to be. So we'll see if it's any more significant of that down the road. But for now, those two guys will not play versus USF. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, SEC teleconference was on Wednesday. I got to ask Billy Napier a couple of questions. Here are all those questions on the running backs and the passing game, and then I'll catch you back on the other side. Coach, a couple questions. I'll start with one, and if I can follow up with another. But through the first couple games, Montreal Johnson and Trevor Etienne have done a great job picking up chunk yardage. Do you envision those guys vying for more carries?
We're very much a running back by committee group. It's been our philosophy for a long time. We've been one of the best rushing teams in the country. Those players have went on to play in the National Football League. Montreal, Trevor and Naquan, those guys are next up, right? And the good thing about that room is those guys they're selfless. They've got a great attitude. They work hard each day. Really, they're improving as practice players. I think Trevor in particular is learning more and more as a rookie player, but Naquan provides leadership. Montreal obviously is still a young player, but played in our system last year. So each one of those guys to go along with Lorenzo Lingard, they contribute to our team in a great way, and we'll continue to roll those guys through.
Okay, and last one. Knowing the passing game struggled last game, how do you assess testing the defenses down the field? Not many long completions through the first couple of games against two really good defenses. How much of an emphasis is there on creating more explosives in the passing game?
Well, I think we made some explosive passes in the first game. I think we've got a little bit of that is by design. Just depends on the opponent and how they're playing you. But I agree with you. I think the things that you're saying there are true. We didn't create enough explosive plays in week 2. And certainly part of that is you got to protect, you got to run good routes, and you got to throw the ball with accuracy and complete balls down the field. So I think it's a collective effort when you start talking about creating explosive plays. And then by design, I think as a play caller, we can help the players there and try to put them in position to have success.
Good stuff there from Billy Napier, and look, don't expect them to give away too much right there. But going back to the run game, look, he's going to use the three backs that he's been using. Expect that. Naquan Wright's not going away, and nor should he. But what we've been discussing is shifting the carries. And Naquan Wright may even get to start in a lot more games. But I think what we're seeing now is the need for more carries for Montreal Johnson, more carries for Trevor Etienne, those guys getting double-digit carries. So I went back. I'm going to see if I can pull it up. go back. I went back and I posted it on Twitter on Tuesday, I believe, and it's something just kind of it came in my head, so I really, really wanted to go back and look at it. And it was Montrell Johnson's numbers a year ago, because remember, he was a true freshman at Louisiana last year, and we all know he ended up being a pretty good running back for a true freshman, Sun Belt all freshman, averaged 5.2 yards a carry last year. He had 162 carries last year. But if you go back to last year, he had 6 attempts versus Texas in the opener, and then 9 carries versus Nicholls State in game 2. And then in game 3 is when we saw maybe more trust going towards Montrell Johnson. And it's not like he blew, in the Nicholls game, the second game of the season, only 9 carries for 11 yards, 1.2 yards a carry. Against Texas, he had 6 carries for 27 yards, 4.5. But then you could see there was probably more trust, probably in practice, because the Nicholls State game didn't show a whole lot. But starting that third game versus Ohio, Montrell Johnson, 13 carries. Very next week versus Georgia Southern, 13 carries. Went back down to 4 versus South Alabama, and then went on a tear the rest of the season. App State, which we was the second best team in the Sun Belt, he had 14 carries. That was a season high at that point. And that was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was the 6th game of the season, 14 carries. Very next week, Arkansas State, 17 carries. And then Texas State, 10 carries. Georgia State, 17 carries. Troy, 16. Liberty, 11. And then toward the end of the season, Louisiana Monroe, 5. App State, 8 in the Sun Belt Conference Championship. And then in the bowl game, I believe there was an injury to a running back for Louisiana, I believe, if I remember right. But then against Marshall, Billy Napier's last game, or no, he didn't even coach that game, did he? The bowl game. Montrell Johnson did play in that game. 19 carries there for Montrell Johnson in the bowl game versus Marshall. So, yeah, the third game is when it started looking like it was changing there for Billy Napier and trusting a freshman running back in Montrell Johnson last year at Louisiana. Now, of course, Trevor Etienne comes on the scene as a true freshman for Billy Napier at Florida, and looks like he deserves a lot more carries. So maybe it kind of happens the same way it did last year, or the third game of the season, you start to see him trusting a freshman running back a bit more. So, of course, that's on Trevor Etienne to make sure he takes care of his responsibilities too. And it does look like at least running the ball and in game situations that it's there. So now, is he doing the right things in practice? Can they trust him to protect the quarterback? Because we've seen those running backs make some really good blocks this year, and that's mostly been Naquan Wright and Montrell Johnson. So if Trevor Etienne wants to be on the field a bit more, then he has to take care of that. And I'm not saying he's not, but you heard there in the interview that Billy Napier did say, look, he's getting better in practice. And that's what we need to see. That's what we need to see. So maybe that third, if we go back to last year, maybe that's an indication. That third game, if those guys are doing what they're supposed to do, then that's when the trust from the coaching staff will come over as well. But a lot different also. Billy Napier trying to figure out this whole team in a transition year. It's a lot to figure out, and also coming off of a loss there versus Kentucky. All right, and then as far as the passing game goes, we know it's not just AR. Does need to help around him, but we've seen some plays there to be made. But somewhat alarming that nothing down the field yet, and there's been no touchdown passes, nothing down the field. I think the longest completion is, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I should have pulled that up. I meant to pull that up, but I think it was like 28 yards. I believe I said it Monday night in the episode there. So, yeah, definitely a point of emphasis. And I'll try and pull it up right quick just to make sure I'm right. I don't want to be wrong on that. But you heard Billy Napier say, yeah, we didn't create the explosives that we should have versus Kentucky. And, of course, it has made a difference in Florida's passing attack. So let me make sure, because that's going to get on my nerves if I get it wrong for you. If I'm even going to the right place to find it. Maybe I'm not. Yep, first place I went and checked. That's not it. Yeah, maybe. I'm pretty sure it's like 28 yards in the Utah game. So, yeah, there we go. I was right. The long of this season is 28 yards. So definitely got to get better. Whether that be a wide receiver catch and run. You'd love to see the deep passes connected, and that's been an issue, overthrowing those. But a couple things in the offense that we're looking for, a couple things I wanted to ask Billy Napier about. You heard his thoughts on it. Look, he's not going to go that deep on it, and he's not going to down anybody in that setting. But I wanted to see what we could get from him with those two topics kind of coming to the forefront through 2 games for the Gators. One, kind of a positive of seeing some young running backs needing the ball more, going out there and proving that they need the ball more. And then the kind of worry of the downfield passing. So we see if Anthony Richardson can get that confidence back. A big topic we hit on in the last episode that I posted on Gators Breakdown. Seth Varnador of Seth Varnador Films joins me, gives us a coaching perspective of the Gators, and then his thoughts on how Florida should handle Anthony Richardson for the USF game. Do you go out there, let him throw the ball over the field? Do you go lean on a run game? Good conversation we had there with Seth. And then also the USF preview. If you want some key players to look out for their team as the Gators match up against the Bulls underneath the lights once again in the Swamp. So go listen to that episode for even more Gators coverage like we bring here all the time on Gators Breakdown. It's all right. Big thanks to Chris Doering for joining us right here again on Gators Breakdown. Thanks to you for listening to this episode. Couldn't do it without you. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the interaction. Guys and girls out there, I'll catch you on the next episode of Gators Breakdown.